My husband, Arthur, was a quiet man. For 40 years, he ran a modest import-export business, and for 40 years, I was Eleanor, the supportive wife, the loving mother. Our life was comfortable, predictable, and utterly unremarkable. Or so I thought. 3 weeks after Arthur's funeral, a lawyer called. He spoke of a Swiss bank account, specific instructions, and a safe deposit box that opened only with my fingerprint. I thought it was a prank. Arthur with millions? It was inconceivable. But when I stood in that bank, staring at the numbers on the screen, seeing those accounts in my name, I understood. Arthur had been protecting me. He knew that if our family ever found out, they would see me not as a person but as a prize. He was right. Days later, my son Daniel and his wife, Chloe, arrived with smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. They insisted it was for my own good to move in with them. A 65-year-old woman shouldn't live alone, they cooed. They wanted to take care of me in my golden years. Liars. What they wanted was to have me under their roof, where they could manipulate me better. But I played the part of the foolish old woman they thought I was. I said yes. I even thanked them, telling them how good they were to me. When you reach my age, you learn that sometimes it's better to let them think you're clueless. Better that they see you as a poor, confused old lady who doesn't understand a thing. But the truth was, I understood everything. I understood why Chloe was so insistent, why they had suddenly become so affectionate, why Daniel, who barely visited once a month when his father was alive, now showed up every day, worried about my well-being. What they didn't understand was that I had changed. Arthur's death had not only left me a widow, it had left me with a $27 million secret. The first week living with them was like being in a badly acted play. In her flashy red dresses and perfectly manicured nails, would talk to me as if I were a child. "Eleanor, dear, don't you worry about money. We'll take care of everything," she'd say, rummaging through my purse for my checkbook. "You don't need to handle these complicated things anymore. Just leave it to us." Daniel was no better. My own son, the child I had carried and raised with so much love, now spoke to me as if I were a burden. "Mom, you have to understand that things have changed. Dad isn't here to take care of you anymore. Now it's Chloe and me who have to look after you." As if I were a piece of furniture to be stored in the attic. But I let them believe I was confused. I pretended I couldn't remember where I'd put my important papers, acted as if I needed help to understand the most basic things. While they thought they were playing me for a fool, I was watching, I was learning. I was preparing myself for what I knew was coming. Chloe, with her bright green dresses and high heels, clicking through the house like gunshots, would put on her makeup in front of the dining room mirror while I ate breakfast, talking to me as if I were deaf. "Eleanor, dear, today we're going to the bank to sort out some little papers for your account." Okay, it's boring stuff, but necessary. I would nod with my confused old lady face, but inside I was taking mental notes of every word, every gesture, every lie that came out of her red-painted mouth. She didn't know I had been married to a businessman for 40 years. She didn't know I had seen thousands of contracts, that I had been present at dinners where multi-million-dollar deals were closed, that I had learned to spot a con artist from a mile away. Daniel was more subtle but no less obvious. "Mom, do you remember where Dad kept the important documents? Chloe and I want to help you get everything organized, but we need to know what papers you have." They were looking for my assets. The problem was, they didn't know I had nothing to organize. My official assets were a savings account with $12,000, and the house where I had lived for 40 years. That was all that appeared on any documents they could find. The $27 million were so well hidden that not even the best private investigator could have found them without the keys that only I possessed. And I had no intention of telling them. Every day, every conversation, every glance they exchanged when they thought I wasn't looking, confirmed that I had made the right decision. These two snakes didn't deserve a single cent of what my husband had worked so hard to build. The second week, they started to apply pressure. Chloe came into my room early one morning without knocking, carrying a breakfast tray and that smile I had grown to hate. "Eleanor, my love, I brought you your favorite breakfast." It was watery oatmeal with mushy fruit, but I smiled and thanked her as if she had brought me a feast. "You know, Eleanor," she said, sitting on my bed without permission, her eyes shining with greed. "Daniel and I have been thinking about your future. A woman your age needs security. She needs to know that someone will take care of her when she can no longer care for herself. We spoke with a lawyer friend of ours, Mr. Price, and he says it would be a very good idea for you to make a will, just to get everything in order." There it was, the opening move. The first play in the chess game they thought they were playing with me. But what they didn't know was that I had been playing chess long before they were even born. "A will?" I asked in a trembling voice, pretending to be overwhelmed. "But I don't have anything important to leave." "Oh, Eleanor, don't say that," Chloe cooed in that phony voice she used for manipulation. "You have the house, you have your savings, you have valuable things. It's important that you protect your legacy. I knew what they were doing. They wanted me to sign over my assets, to make them beneficiaries of everything I owned. But they didn't know about the $27 million. They only knew about the house and the meager savings. I had to buy time. I'll think about it, I said, my voice barely a whisper. But it's all so confusing. Chloe smiled, a predatory gleam in her eyes. Don't you worry, dear. We'll help you with everything. The next morning I woke up feeling strangely groggy. My head felt heavy, my thoughts muddled. Chloe brought me a cup of tea, her smile wider than usual. Drink this, Eleanor. It will help you feel better. I took a sip, and the world seemed to tilt. I pretended to drink it all, but I knew something was wrong. Later, a doctor arrived. A man with a stern face and cold eyes. Dr. Shepard, Chloe introduced him. He asked me a series of questions. Do you know what day it is today? Tuesday, I answered, though it was Friday. Do you know where you are? At the house of, I trailed off, looking around as if I didn't recognize the place. The doctor exchanged a meaningful look with Chloe. Mrs. Eleanor, I'm afraid you are experiencing severe cognitive decline. It's common in people your age, especially after traumatic events like the death of a spouse. What does that mean? Daniel asked, feigning ignorance. It means Mrs. Eleanor is no longer in a condition to make important decisions for herself, the doctor explained. She needs a legal guardian to handle her financial and medical affairs. Fortunately, you as her family can assume that responsibility. It's a very difficult decision, Chloe said, feigning being overwhelmed. But if it's what's best for Eleanor, it is definitely for the best, the doctor confirmed. I can certify her mental incapacity, and you can proceed with the corresponding legal paperwork. There it was. The trap sprung. They had drugged me, brought in a corrupt doctor to certify I was insane. And now they were going to steal everything they thought I had. All legal, all official, all perfectly planned, except for one small detail they didn't know about. Arthur, my late husband's trusted former assistant, had been recording the entire conversation from outside the house. He had professional surveillance equipment that had captured every word, every admission of guilt, every step of their criminal plan. And he wasn't alone. Because while they believed they were closing their trap, mine was just opening. Doctor, I said suddenly, in a voice that was completely clear and lucid. Could you repeat that? You said you're going to certify that I'm mentally incapacitated. The silence that followed was absolute. The doctor turned white. Chloe's jaw dropped. Daniel looked like he was about to faint. Eleanor, Chloe stammered. I thought you were confused. Oh, I'm perfectly clear, I replied, standing up with an energy that froze them all. I'm so clear that I've just recorded this entire conversation. I'm so clear that I've been pretending to be drugged all morning. And I'm so clear on exactly what the three of you have been planning. The doctor tried to get up and leave, but at that moment, the front door opened. In walked Arthur, 2 police officers, and a detective who had been investigating Dr. Shepard's operations. Nobody move, the detective said. You are all under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, and attempted kidnapping. Chloe turned to me with a fury that finally showed her true face. You damned old witch, you set us up. That's right, I replied with a smile I had been saving for weeks. I set you up just like you set me up. The difference is my trap worked. As the police cuffed them, Chloe kept screaming, You can't arrest us. We were just trying to take care of her. She's crazy. Ma'am, the detective told her with professional patience. We have recordings of you planning to drug Mrs. Eleanor, of you conspiring with a doctor to have her falsely declared incompetent, and of you threatening to use force if she didn't cooperate. That's not care. That's criminal abuse. Daniels, my own son, looked at me with a mixture of hatred and desperation. Mom, how could you do this to us? We're your family. That's precisely why it hurts so much, I answered. Because when your own family betrays you, when your own son decides you're worth more dead than alive, when the woman you brought into my home tries to poison me, that's not family. That's the enemy. Dr. Shepard tried to negotiate. Mrs. Eleanor, this is a misunderstanding. I was only trying to help. Arthur interrupted him. We have evidence that you've been involved in at least 12 similar cases in the last 5 years. Falsifying psychiatric evaluations is a federal crime. You're going to have a lot of time in prison to think about all the help you've given. As they were led away, Chloe screamed one last threat at me. This isn't over, Eleanor. I will find a way to destroy you. But I just smiled, because what Chloe didn't know was that this was just the beginning. I had won the first battle, but the war wasn't over, and I had $27 million to fund a revenge she would never see coming. When they were finally gone, I was left alone in the house with Arthur. Mrs. Eleanor, he said with admiration. That was brilliant. But are you sure you want to continue? We've caught them. They're under arrest. Arthur, I replied. Those 3 are just the tip of the iceberg. How many other seniors are suffering what I was about to suffer? How many other families are robbing their own parents and grandparents? How many other doctors are selling false certificates of incompetence? You're right, he admitted. It's a much bigger problem. Exactly, I said, feeling a resolve I hadn't felt in years. And now I have the resources to do something about it. That night, alone in my own house for the first time in weeks, I took out the bank documents I had kept hidden. $27 million. A fortune my husband had quietly amassed, protecting it from exactly the kind of people who had just been arrested. But now I was going to use that fortune for something he never would have imagined. I was going to use it for a war. The following days were like waking from a nightmare and stepping into a dream. For the first time in months, I could walk through my own house without someone watching me. I could make my own decisions without someone questioning me. I could be myself without having to pretend to be a helpless old woman. But that freedom came with a rage that had been silently growing within me. A rage for every senior who had been abused, for every family that had betrayed, for every criminal who thought old people were easy prey. I started by funding Arthur's investigations, expanding his network, gathering evidence against corrupt doctors and predatory families. We built a legal team, a network of advocates, and a foundation dedicated to protecting the rights of senior citizens. The Eleanor Morales Foundation became a beacon of hope for countless elderly individuals. We lobbied for stronger laws, exposed fraudulent schemes, and provided legal aid to victims. My story, once a personal tragedy, became a rallying cry. 5 years later, I walked into a small convenience store in a quiet neighborhood. I was there to buy a newspaper, but my eyes caught a familiar face behind the counter. It was Chloe. Her flashy red dresses were replaced by a faded blue uniform, her perfectly manicured nails chipped and broken. Her hair, once meticulously styled, was now pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked tired, defeated, and utterly unremarkable. When our eyes met, I saw the exact she realized who I was. "Eleanor," she whispered, her face turning deathly pale. "Hello, Chloe," I replied, my voice as calm as a winter lake. What are you doing here?" she stammered. "I wanted to see you," I said simply. "I wanted to see what you had become." She looked around nervously, as if expecting bodyguards to appear and arrest her or worse. "Eleanor, I'm so sorry. I know what we did was wrong. I've had 5 years to think about it." "And do you know what's most interesting, Chloe?" I interrupted her. "What?" "That if you hadn't betrayed me, if you hadn't tried to steal from me, if you hadn't put drugs in my drink and tried to have me declared insane, I would have died being exactly what you thought I was. An invisible, helpless old woman." She didn't answer. She just stared at me with a mixture of terror and confusion. "But thanks to you," I continued, "I became something so much more powerful. Thanks to your betrayal, I discovered I had the capacity to be a warrior. Thanks to your cruelty, I found my true purpose in life." "Eleanor, please." "No," I cut her off again. "I'm not going to hurt you, Chloe. I'm not going to send you back to prison. I'm not going to ruin the pathetic little life you've built here. No, because you're no longer important enough to me to dedicate another second of my time." I took an envelope from my purse and placed it on the counter. "But I want you to have this." "What is it?" "A check for $10,000. Her eyes widened in shock. "Why?" "Because I want you to live a long life, Chloe. I want you to live for many, many years. I want you every day to wake up and remember that the woman you tried to destroy became one of the most powerful women in the country. I want every time you see my name in the news, every time you hear about the Eleanor Morales Foundation, every time someone mentions the laws I changed and the lives I saved, you remember that it all exists because you underestimated me." I took the check and put it directly into her hand. "This money isn't charity. It's my investment in your misery. Because every time you spend it, you will remember that it came from the woman you defeated, without even realizing it." I walked out of that store knowing I had closed the final chapter of my old life. Chloe was no longer my enemy. She was just an old woman, working in a convenience store, living with the weight of knowing she had lost the most important war of her life. That night, sitting in my office overlooking the city lights, I reflected on the incredible journey my life had been. It had begun as Eleanor the Invisible, the old woman no one noticed. It had passed through Eleanor the victim, the woman betrayed by her own family. Then I had become Eleanor the Avenger, the woman who destroyed her enemies. And finally, I had transformed into Eleanor the hero, the woman who protected the innocent around the world. But more than all of that, I had become Eleanor the free. Free from society's expectations of what a woman my age should be. Free from the need to be loved by people who didn't deserve me. Free from living a small, quiet life. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Patricia, my foundation's director. "Mrs. Eleanor," she said, excitement in her voice. "I just got a call from Sweden. They want to nominate you for the Nobel Peace Prize for your work in protecting the rights of senior citizens." I smiled. The Nobel Peace Prize for a woman who had started this war as an act of personal revenge. "You know what, Patricia?" I said. "What?" "I think I'll accept, but only if I can use my acceptance speech to send a message to every abuser in the world." "What message?" "That some old women bite, and that when we bite, the wound is fatal." I hung up the phone and looked out the window one last time. Somewhere in that city, there were seniors being abused at this very moment. Somewhere in the world, families were plotting to steal from their own parents and grandparents. Somewhere's criminals thought that old people were easy prey. But I also knew that somewhere there was an old woman who was refusing to be a victim. There was a grandmother recording her grandchildren's threats. There was a widow calling the police instead of suffering in silence. Because I had shown that it was possible. I had shown that it is never too late to fight back. I had shown that age can be a mask for ferocity, and that gray hair can hide very sharp fangs. And that, I thought as I turned off the lights in my office, was the most perfect revenge of all. I hadn't just destroyed my enemies. I had inspired an entire generation of seniors not to let themselves be destroyed. Some bites, after all, are contagious.